Aloha, hafa adai, to all of you attending from Hawaii, Guam, and the mainland. My name is Al Ogata, and I'm the president and CEO of CyberHawaii. CyberHawaii, as you're probably aware, is a nonprofit information sharing and workforce development organization that focuses on improving cyber resiliency in Hawaii's small and mid-sized businesses, as well as within the community as a whole. We're supported through membership dues provided by the organizations that are shown here, as well as by the state of Hawaii through grants and through partnerships with numerous federal agencies. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2024 Fortify Cybersecurity Educational Series. This series is brought to you through a partnership between CyberHawaii and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA. Today's webinar will discuss the topic of secure by design. Many technology products are introduced to the market, even though they may have missing pieces or flaws that can be exploited by hackers. This places the burden on companies and consumers to dedicate additional resources for addressing these flaws and to subsequently bear the risk of them being exploited. In more mature industries, the inclusion of security and safety principles in the design process has grown over time as manufacturers have realized that building more reliable products results in higher consumer satisfaction and less pushback from regulators. To encourage this maturation, CISA has come up with a voluntary program for software vendors called Secure by Design. In today's webinar, you'll learn what Secure by Design is, why it's important, how Secure by Design principles keep you safer, and what you can do now to implement it. Questions should be entered into the chat window and will be read at pauses in the presentation. This presentation is also being recorded, and the recording will be available on the CyberHawaii website in a few days. In addition, the presenter has agreed that you can contact him after today's presentation should you have any questions or need his assistance. His email address will appear during the presentation. During this presentation, you're requested to remain on mute unless asking questions during designated Q&A sections. Your presenter today is William Hicks. William, or Bill, is CISA Region 9 Cyber Outreach Specialist located in Oakland, California. William holds a CompTIA Security Plus certification and graduated from the Federal Cyber Defense Skilling Academy. William has a background in protective security and risk management and has earned a certified protection professional certification from ASIS. Currently, William is studying for a second bachelor's degree in computer science with a focus on secure software development. And with that introduction, I'll turn the mic over to Bill to start us off.
Thanks, Al. Let me go ahead and share my screen.
Okay. Okay.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Thanks, Al.
Yep, you bet.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining. I'd like to say, I know if you're here, it means you're probably working on cybersecurity or IT in your day-to-day, which means you probably have a lot going on, and that's because security never sleeps. So we appreciate everyone's time. A little about me, and as Al read my bio, you're probably wondering, what is my expertise? Well, as was shared, I am in the process of transitioning more from a physical security background into more of a cybersecurity background with a key interest in the subject that we're going to be talking about today, which is secure software. And if I can get a little personal for a minute here, what really drives my interest is the fact that my dad was a computer programmer for 40 years, and we've often discussed the speed of technology and the prices that we're paying for it now. So getting to contribute to the efforts of Secure by Design has really come full circle for me on a personal level. And a little more about me. I work out of the Oakland office, which is in CISA Region 9. CISA is divided into 10 regions, and my region covers California, Hawaii, Arizona, Nevada, Guam, American Samoa, and the Northern Mariana Islands. CISA is America's cyber defense agency and the national coordinator for infrastructure and resilience and security. CISA leads the national effort to understand, manage, and reduce risk to cyber and physical infrastructure that Americans rely on every day. CISA.gov has some great resources, and we really try to make it easy for everyone to understand. I encourage you all to go on to CISA.gov and kind of research and search for topics that interest you the most. So we wanted to start out with a poll from our attendees. If you could go ahead and just drop in the chat if you've ever heard of the concept of secure by design. Okay, I'm seeing some yeses and nos. Okay, so far more yeses than nos. That's great. That's great. Okay. All right. So starting out, let's before we jump into the technology sector, let's take a look at some other industries. The technology sector is a relatively new sector compared to other sectors that have been around for a long time. For example, historians have said that the manufacturing company industry has been around since the 1760s in England, and just take a moment to consider what that would be like, the how difficult and unsafe those working conditions would be. Let's also consider the food and agricultural industry. Uh, a long time ago, when there was a bad crop season or an infestation wiped out a whole field, this meant really bad news for a town. But today, we don't have to worry about food. We know it's always going to be there, and we can produce food at staggering rates. It's gotten safer, and not only has the freshness increased, but the amount of bugs have decreased, and it's always getting healthier. We're always finding new ways to research and inform people about the dangers of certain foods and provide advice on what to eat if you have certain medical conditions. And so these industries have always pushed to do better, whether it's working conditions or accounting for the growing population. So let's go ahead and take a look at the automobile industry. This let's sit with this graph for a little while, and we're going to break it down here. So if there is one key takeaway, I would say from this whole presentation, it's what I want you to know and understand is the capability of the auto industry to go from an industry that produces very dangerous products to an industry that produces safe and reliable cars, which get better and safer every year. So on this graph, on the vertical line here, we have the number, which equates to the population. And on the horizontal line, we have the years starting back with the 1920s. And this is actually when we started capturing US motor vehicle data. And as a fun fact, just like the tech industry, the automobile started capturing data during the inception of the industry, which makes a good comparison for the technology company, which industry, which we'll get to in a moment. So focusing on the red line here, we see that it stands for the vehicle motor traffic or VMT deaths. Starting from the 1920s on the left side, you follow it down to more recent times where it looks relatively low. And now if you look at the VMT, which is the blue line going to the right, you see that this skyrocketed from the 1920s. And so this gap here is really amazing. So as the population increased, so did the number of accidents, which makes sense. As populations increase and cars increase, so will the number of accidents on the road. But surprisingly, the number of deaths didn't stay the same or didn't go down. It went, or stay the same. It went drastically down. And if you could take a guess as to why, that would be because cars got much safer throughout the years. So next up here, we have a graph. It's from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administrating Reporting System. And so on the right side here, we have the row, which indicates the traffic crash fatalities. And we can see from 2000 to 2020, we see an overall decrease. A fun fact about this is that in that time frame, the world went from 6 billion to 7 billion people, and North America added 100 million people. Yet and still, the number of deaths overall decreased. So what does this show us? It shows us that not only was our population soaring, but our ability to make cars safer stayed and actually got better. All right, so this next slide here, this next graph here, we're actually taking a look at the National Transportation Safety Board. This dashboard here is a website that reports on airplane accidents from 2012 to 2021. So we're seeing the same trends here. We're seeing an overall decrease in accidents over the years, but this time we're actually getting a little more detailed look into the phases of the flight and what we call the defining event. So how is this done? How are we able to kind of look at these trends more in detail? Well, this is all done through meticulous capturing of data. And why do we do this? Well, of course, we didn't want planes to start falling out of the sky. We took the risk of plane accidents very seriously. And so I'd like to draw your attention to the graph in the upper right corner. We can see here that the category is actually hidden by the first graph, but what this indicates here is accidents with findings. And if you follow the graph, you'll see that it flows into personal issues, psychology, and then attention to monitoring. And so I'd like for all of us here to go ahead and put on our cybersecurity hats for a minute. And if we can draw some parallels or concepts that might translate from this dashboard, which is related to plane accidents, to cybersecurity, if we can draw any kind of connections here or insights, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We'll go ahead and wait 10, 15 seconds. If you've seen some trends or some data points that may kind of be closely related to cybersecurity. Okay, so I'm not seeing any in the chat, but what I will say, I won't belabor the point here. Belaboring this point would be as fun as getting stuck in an actual airport. But what I will say is that some of the parallels that I drew here was insider threat, lack of training, and information overload, all data points and points of analysis that we can see in cybersecurity. All right, so how does the software industry compare? And then it's the moment you've all been waiting for, obviously, for this presentation. So before we begin, I'd like again for all of us to put our software development hats on. And if you've never coded a day in your life, that's okay. I know you're all smart enough to know what it would be like to be a software developer. I could tell you just from my minimal experience, it's sitting in front of a computer wondering why your code isn't working. And by the way, I do recommend anybody, regardless of what you do, take coding classes. It really is a great exercise of the mind, and it really does get you to start to appreciate what amazing and complex tools computers are. And so here's my attempt at a joke. Here we go. So how many software developers does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. It's a hardware problem. So while that joke is silly, it does poke at the human tendency to deflect blame onto someone else or something else. So back to the question at hand. A good thing is, like I mentioned, the automobile industry and the software industry started collecting data relatively around the same time. We know that cybersecurity problems are reported every day, and that at such a high amount, it makes it really difficult to keep up. We know that technology is integrated into every facet of our daily lives. And the internet facing systems increasingly are connected to critical systems that directly impact our economic prosperity, our livelihood, and even our health, ranging from personal identification information to medical care. And you could, by no means is the software industry slowing down. In fact, you could argue that it's speeding up with the advances of AI, machine learning, and quantum computing. All right. So back to the tracking of data in the software industry. Here we have some really good examples of the information related to the software industry and security. For example, we have the Microsoft Digital Defense, which provides key lessons from trillions of signals analyzed by the Microsoft systems. We have the Data Breach Investigations Report, which is a comprehensive view of cybersecurity threats and data breaches. M-Trends by Mandiant It provides threat intelligence directly from investigations and remediations. And CrowdStrike Global Threat Report examines our adversarial behaviors. And so, how do these help? Well, they all really contribute to the software industry's ecosystem. These products, like many others, allow customers and manufacturers to stay up to date on the latest issues, essentially doing the same thing for the customer and for the manufacturer. But there is a problem. All right. So, for some additional background, CISA, along with other agencies, recently, I wouldn't say recently, in April 13th, 2023, published an article designed to raise awareness and to facilitate international conversations about the key priorities, the investments, and the decisions necessary to manufacture technology that is safe, secure, and resilient. Now, more than ever, it is critical for technology manufacturers to make secure by design and secure by default focal points of product design and the development process. Some vendors have made great strides in driving the industry forward in software assurance, while others still lag behind. We strongly encourage every technology manufacturer to build their products in a way that prevents customers from having to consistently perform monitoring, routine updates, and damage control to their systems to mitigate cyber intrusions. Customers are encouraged to take ownership. Manufacturers are encouraged to take ownership of improving security outcomes of their customers. Historically, technology manufacturers have relied on fixing vulnerabilities found after the customer have deployed the products. This requires the customer to apply these patches at their own expense. So not only by incorporating corporate secure by design practices will we break the vicious cycle, it would also help in applying those fixes. So to accomplish this high standard of software security, we encourage manufacturers to prioritize the integration of product security as a critical prerequisite to features and to speed of market. Over time, engineering teams will be able to establish a new steady state rhythm where security is truly designed in and takes less effort to maintain. Okay, the problem. So the problem is that software companies are not adapting to address the true nature of the problem, which is software is being built with vulnerabilities and we just accept it. So let me ask you this in a hypothetical question. When was the last time you picked up a report on the safety features of a car? Have you ever? Probably not. Most of us don't need to worry about the auto industry understanding the issue and taking care of the problem. But today, we continue to patch and create security products that fit on top of other products. We sort through logs and hope guides will teach us to be more secure, and the customers are not the ones who can control this. It's the manufacturers that do. So let me ask you another hypothetical. Is this a statement that you've heard before, that we have a cybersecurity problem in this country and that customers aren't patching enough, that we don't have enough defenders to counter all the increasingly sophisticated threat actors? And this is something we hear quite often, and there's clearly a cybersecurity problem which is increasing. We have increased ransomware attacks, nation state adversaries with more capabilities, and threats from cyber criminals. But what we want to do is get to the root of these issues. What we have is a software insecurity problem. We have software defects that are quite common and belong to known vulnerabilities. Okay. All right. So when an incident happens today, there's a lot of work that happens, especially at the right of boom, where there might be an investigation. A company that is affected, they may notify CISA or law enforcement. They may decide whether or not to pay the ransom. And as you see, as it goes back, they may even look to see when was that vulnerability exploited. What was the initial intrusion factor, for example? They may even say, how did we get exposed to this vulnerability? But what really happens is not going back far enough. And this is where we want to take the conversation. What happens in that product development lifecycle where the vulnerability was introduced? What specific actions did the manufacturer take or did not take in this case that led to the vulnerability being there in the first place? Because at the end of the day, there is no amount of time spent in phase 5 that can compensate for the vulnerabilities in phase 1. And we need to be looking much earlier in the process on how we can systemically eradicate vulnerabilities rather than continuing to deal with the consequences of them being present. As a result of the white paper that we published, we outlined 3 underlying principles of secure by design that we urge all software manufacturers to help take and shift the burden as articulated in the National Cybersecurity Strategy. First, we want manufacturers to own the security outcomes for their customers. So rather than being the ball in the court of the customer to constantly apply patches or deal with the consequences of these products, we want the manufacturing firms to take full responsibility for that. Second, we want manufacturers to lead the way with radical transparency and accountability. This means publishing the statistics on the trends of their product and publishing the detailed common vulnerability enumeration, or CVEs, in order to articulate the root causes of these vulnerabilities. We believe the more information out there, the better, so that other manufacturers can learn from what to do or what not to do. Lastly, we urge manufacturers to build organizational structure that accounts for this. And really, it comes down from the CEO to set the priority of security. So this shouldn't be regulated to the chief information security officer in the company, but rather this is a top-down business priority across the board. And what CISA leadership has explained to Congress that so while we have sophisticated actors like the Republic of China and others, and while there is the cycle of incident response is necessary, in the long term, the only way that we're going to get better is to break the feedback loop to inform secure by design improvements. Our current state is necessary, but our hope is for a long-term security solution and to signal this to the software industry to undergo a transformation. We can't continue to place the blame on our customers. And to the point of the yellow sticker, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Okay, so let's expand upon the underlying principles here. It's really important. It's really important to understand these principles as they are the pillars of secure by design. So principle 1, software development companies need to take ownership of the outcomes of their customers. And this means studying and understanding what customers do with the products, which is often very different than expectations. In addition to how customers use the product, developers should understand how the threat actors deviate from the purpose than what the product was, and that was not anticipated. So we want them to change their mindset from simply delivering the product to ownership of what happens downstream. And taking responsibility is really a huge aspect to secure by design, as typically the expectations and the responsibility has been pushed to the customer, which is the farthest endpoint. And people have very, very busy lives and not enough resources to push back against their adversaries. And in this dynamic, security is just not going to scale. Principle 2, embrace radical transparency and accountability. This type of transparency will be uncomfortable today until when we start to explain how products are being built and what the security is that's being built into them. In 5 years, this type of transparency, we hope, will be modest. Once everyone starts publishing product design and security features, we will start to see the transparency that is not unpleasant as to what it may seem. Software development industries don't rely on facts or statistics, and in many ways, we don't fully understand what good looks like. For example, the CVEs, which is the Common Vulnerability Records, describe a coding error or software defect. CVEs also have CVWs, which describes the coding error class that created a weakness. We want software developer companies to think about these concepts and to explain to the world what is happening when a class of coding error occurs. In many cases, this will help companies better understand what happens. And in other cases, it's going to take a whole of industry approach to make changes. And we need these CVEs and CVWs to understand what's going on. This requires companies to be fully transparent. Principle 3, building organizational structure and leadership to achieve these goals. At the development and engineer level, staff are not always empowered to take action to building security and proactively preventing problems. And it's not always possible to get executives to devote attention. So not only do we need sponsors of Secure by Design, but we need leaders who can direct the team to build secure products. We want Secure by Design to be a stated business goal. Business leaders need to state that Secure by Design is the priority through allocating time, resources, and funding. Security is not only a technical responsibility, it has to be a business strategy. Business leaders have the capability to move markets towards this goal, and it's going to take a whole business approach. All right, so secure by design versus secure by default. We're going to take a look at the differences between these two very complementary concepts. Secure by design means that technology products are built in a way that reasonably protects against malicious actors from successfully gaining access to devices, data, and connected infrastructure. Software manufacturers should perform risk assessments in order to identify and enumerate prevalent cyber threats to critical systems, then include those protections in product blueprints that account for the evolving cyber threat landscape. Secure by Design is information technology development practices and multi-layers of defense, also known as defense in depth. There are recommended These are also recommended to prevent malicious actors from compromising systems or obtaining unauthorized access to sensitive data. It is further recommended that manufacturers use tailored threat models during the product development stage to address all potential threats to a system and to account for each system's deployment process. Okay, so let's look at some concepts for design. First off, business goal. So, in order to fix things, we have to recognize that there are some strong economic forces behind the issue. It's very natural for businesses to think about the cost and the impact to an organization. Stated before kickoff, we want to empower developers to get the time and resources to design security into their programs. Instead of asking developers and engineers to lobby for permission to slow down production, to build and to test secure products, this drive should come from the top. We want organizational leaders to allocate resources and align secure practice instead of trying to get staff to negotiate from the bottom up. Trade-offs. We believe there will be some upfront cost and investment into new ideas and software that software companies must expect. However, to examine the cost of doing patches and pulling developers off of the current project to fix current ongoing issues. So there needs to be a reframing. There needs to be a rebalancing occurring. Just like in the automobile industry, airbags and computers that analyze the impact of the crash, these also all cost money. In software, defenders are trying to figure out how to pay for those hard and soft issues having to write a check for all those additional security tools and the hardening guides that need to be deployed. When patches are created, it's not just the developers needing to be pulled off. At a minimum, we have our quality assurance people or more, and depending on how complicated the process is. In potentially the marketing team, the communication team, and even the legal team could be pulled into this process. So these are all uh, soft and hard costs that need to be accounted for. And all of this could have been prevented. Lastly, it can't be added later. We like to say at CISA, we need more secure products, not security products. We need to think about how we can work with and encourage every technology manufacturer into building security into their products from the start. And here's a great example from the auto industry. You will notice there's a lot of automobile industry references, and that's okay. It will help in remembering the concept. But here's an example. So this is an advertisement for a device you could purchase after you purchased a Corvair back in, I believe, the 50s. So uh, what they said, the manufacturer noted that there were some defects in the car, and that these aftermarket products were available. Through advertising, they said that the products keep both wheels from working when cornering or driving in gusty winds. And that sounds like hyperbole, but as it turns out, Corvairs had a tendency to be involved in what was called a one-car accident, where the car would spontaneously get out of control and flip over. So this was a device that you could buy, you could bolt onto the frame of your car, and would allegedly help prevent this kind of danger. After reading through comments online, it was never very clear that this was actually did what it was supposed to do. And I think this is a great metaphor for cybersecurity products. Okay, so let's take a look at some secure by design, and here are some specific tactics that you could take and know and to understand about secure by design. So first, starting off, memory safe programming, which if you don't know much about computers, that's okay. What you should know is that there are multiple languages that developers can use. Some of the older languages had insecure methods for storing data. So newer languages have more built-in tools to make programs more secure. The most promising path towards eliminating memory safe vulnerabilities for software manufacturers is to find a way to standardize on memory safe programming languages and to mitigate critical software components to memory safe programming languages in existing code bases. Next, we see secure hardware foundation. So this is the practice of incorporating additional features that enable memory protection, which can be extended to conventional or existing hardware. Next, we see secure software components. This makes software written in languages like C and C++ safer. So this project works on different types of computer architects, which involves a lot of testing and development. Parameterized queries. So this is a class of vulnerabilities, also known as SQL injection, which you may have heard of because it's been in the news a lot lately. And so this is taking the practice of, whenever possible, using the built-in library functions that separate the command arguments instead of constructing raw strings that are fed into the general purpose command. So I'm going to give you an analogy for that. I think I've got a great analogy here that may help to make it simpler. So here's my analogy. Okay, so think of software security as making a sandwich. Okay, instead of giving customers full access to your kitchen, which is the raw command construction, you only allow them to use items from a preset menu or the built-in functions. You also ensure that they wash their hands, so they sanitize their input, and you only give them the ingredients that they need. limit the input necessary parts. So this way you prevent a unwanted mess, or another also known as a security vulnerability. I hope you like my analogy there, because I have another one. So next up we see software secure bill of material, or SBOM as it's known. So when you think of SBOM, think about the ingredients on a list of a food package. Okay, so as you know, you need to see what ingredients are in your food for safety and health reasons. And SBOM lets you see what components make up a software product to ensure its security. And here's the analogy. Think of CISA as a food safety agency, working with the community to refine ingredient lists, making them more detailed and more accurate. They also help manage alerts about potentially harmful ingredients or vulnerabilities through a system called VEX, which is like issuing a food recall. This ensures that the transparency and the safety of the software ecosystem, much how like an ingredient list or food recall protects customers. And last on our list here, vulnerability disclosure policies with a safe legal safe harbor. So software development companies should establish vulnerability disclosure programs that allow researchers to report vulnerabilities and receive safe harbor from doing so. As part of this, suppliers should establish the process to determine the root causes of the discovery vulnerabilities. Such processes should include determining whether adopting any secure by design practice would have prevented the introduction of the vulnerability. Okay, now that's secure by design. We're going to now talk about secure by default. So, secure by default means the product is resilient against prevalent exploitation techniques out of the box without any change. These products protect against the most prevalent threats and vulnerabilities without end users having to take additional steps to secure them. Secure by default products are designed to make customers more accurately aware when they deviate from safety defaults. So it like increasing the likelihood, or so that they are increasing, so they are aware that they are increasing the likelihood of compromise unless they implement additional controls. It's important to note, secure by default is a form of secure by design. The secure configuration should be the baseline. Secure by default products automatically enable the most important feature security controls needed to protect enterprises from malicious actors, as well as the ability to use further security configuration controls at no additional cost. The complexity of security configuration should not be a customer problem. Organizational IT staff are always overloaded with security and operational responsibilities, thus resulting in limited time to understand and implement the security implications and mitigation requiring a robust cybersecurity posture. Manufacturers can aid their customers by optimizing their product configurations, known as securing the default path, ensuring that the products are manufactured and distributed and used securely in accordance with secure by default standards. Here, we're going to take a look at some examples. Okay, secure configurations out of the box. This goes without saying, but there should be no reason for customers to believe that things are not as secure as possible. Manufacturer responsibility, we want to hold them accountable so they're not sending products into the marketplace and just hoping for the best. MFA push like security by default. We want customers to be alerted when security is not set, similar to how you would get a push notification through MFA to users. Loosening guides, not hardening guides. This concept is about so hardening guides may result in from a lack of security. Hardening guides, a lack of security being embedded into a product's architecture from the start of development. Consequently, hardening guides can also be a roadmap for adversaries to pinpoint and exploit insecure features. This is common for many organizations to be unaware of hardening guides. Thus, they leave the device configuration in an insecure posture. In an inverted model, known as the loosening guides, this should replace hardening guides and explain to users what should make also list what should users do to make their products less secure. No cost added or new licenses. Obviously, we don't want customers to have to pay for extra security or make efforts to get new licenses. And default in every product, you shouldn't have to buy a separate product to compensate for a lack of security. All right. Now here's some specific examples and tactics in order to implement secure by default. One, eliminating passwords. So products should not come with a default password that are universally shared. We should eliminate all default passwords. Single sign-on at no additional cost, meaning that IT applications should implement single sign-on technology. Uh, those examples include security assertion markup language and OpenID, and these should be available for no charge. High quality logs at no charge. So a strong security posture needs logs. These are crucial for detecting and escalating potential security incidents. They are also crucial for in an investigation of a suspected or confirmed incident. Reducing the hardening guide size. So we want software companies to produce guidance for products to strive to shrink that over time as newer and more secure versions are released. And lastly, our recommendation and tactic here is security setting user experience. So with each new security setting, so does the cognitive burden on the end users. So this really should be assessed in conjunction with business benefit, the business benefit it derives. Ideally, the most secure settings should be integrated into a product by default. When configuration is necessary, the default option should be broadly secure against common threats. Okay. So as you can see, the secure by design ecosystem is quite broad. We really do need everyone's help to reaching everyone, ultimately because we're trying to change an entire industry. To do so, we're not going to be just talking alone to the technology and software development manufacturers. Of course, these are a necessary component, but we also need to understand the open source software community, what their unique needs are, and how we can make sure that we're supporting the open source ecosystem that we all rely on. We need to look at education. We need to look at what the workforce is producing in terms of software developers, and are they being made aware of the security in their everyday work? Likewise, how can we influence customers to be able to tell whether products are secure so they can make the decisions because of that? There really needs to be room for everyone to get involved, and we encourage you to do so, to start by understanding the unique constraints and abilities there are for each of these stakeholder groups. All right, so shifting the balance, and we hear a lot about the potential costs from manufacturers and how products can be built more secure out of the box. And they correctly note that there will be some additional costs when we talk about the software development lifecycle, or the SDLC. But there also are some potential areas to explore in existing processes to understand what are the repeated patterns of vulnerabilities that they see in their products, and what can they do to remove entire classes of vulnerabilities. So we think there are actually some potential cost savings there. But when we talk about costs, we know there's going to be a larger landscape. And so we want to talk about two customers who have to deploy these products. So left of boom, if you at the screen at this slide here, say where they have to buy security products and they have to hire staff. If they can't afford to do that, they also have to uh, purchase the single sign-on tax or more. So there are costs on the left of boom that are going to be a cost. There's also a hard cost. In addition to paying some soft costs, for example, someone has to deploy hardening guidance, someone has to train users, somebody has to patch. So there's a ton of soft costs left at boom. Once an incident does occur, there are additional costs, both hard and soft, such as hiring incident response firms, hiring outside counsel, and so on. And one of the problems after right of boom that we don't talk about enough is executive productivity or the loss of executive productivity. So once executives are dealing with a breach, it's very expensive on their time, and you don't because we can't do all those things. You are left with residual risk. We want to make sure that we're talking about all the costs, including the residual risk. And to the end point here, the thing that we really want to stress is we need to start moving these costs to the left into the product development lifecycle to reduce the burdens of customers downstream. All this, of course, assuming that individual companies make their own rational decisions and that they want to assess the risk. And another aspect here, another part of this conversation is around the national security delta. So the idea that everybody makes very rational decisions about their costs and their risks, but there's still some residual risk. The national security delta translates to this concept: the sum of all risks together is greater than the sum of its parts. Bottom line, we want to take into account all these costs and move them left so that we're dealing with much more balanced approach to cybersecurity. Okay, what can manufacturers do? They can take the pledge. This is a voluntary pledge focused on enterprise software products and services, including on-premises software, cloud services, and software as a service. Uh, Physical products such as IoT devices and consumer products are not scoped within this pledge, but we do encourage companies who wish to take progress in these areas to do so. By participating in this pledge, software manufacturers are pledging to make good faith efforts towards working towards these goals in the following year. In the case of software manufacturers, they can measure this progress towards a goal. The manufacturers should publicly document how they've achieved such progress within 1 year of signing the pledge. When manufacturers are not able to measure the progress, the manufacturer is encouraged to, within 1 year, share how the manufacturer has worked towards the goal and what challenges they faced. And in the spirit of radical transparency, the manufacturer is encouraged to publicly document the approach so that others can learn. And this pledge is voluntary, it's non-binding. You see the 7 steps here. I won't go ahead and read these for you, but these are the steps that a manufacturer can take. All right, so here we have a list of all the companies so far who have taken the pledge, and they've ranged to small to large organizations, from very mature to not very mature organizations. This pledge seeks to complement and build on existing software security best practices, including those developed by CISA, NIST, and other federal agencies, and international and industry best practices. Okay, what can the customer do? So too often, procurement questionnaires are filled with long lists of questions which don't always correlate with positive security outcomes. In order to achieve a future where technology is secure by design, companies buying software should have a simple and to the point set of questions for their vendors. This is why we're excited to announce that CISA has joined the Minimum Viable Secure Product Working Group, or the MVSP. The MVSP offers a simple checklist that organizations can use to strengthen security at multiple stages. This includes a review of software vendor security during the procurement process as a self-assessment tool for their own software, and as part of the software development lifecycle. This can go a long way towards helping to ensure secure by design principles are followed. We are excited to join the minimum secure viable secure product working group to help shape the direction of the initiative going forward. The MVSP is comprised of broad coalition of technology manufacturers, and the working group is open for anyone to join. Okay, so now that we've laid out what we're trying to accomplish with Secure by Design, I want to talk a little bit about how we're going to get there. And so our strategy that we're developing at CISA has three goals. First, to establish CISA's role as in furthering Secure by Design. And what that really means is integrating the entire workforce at CISA. It means pushing companies to be more secure by design. Second, we want to collect best practices and data. We want to know what looks good and how we can help steer companies to do the right thing when it comes to building secure by design technology. This includes, for instance, the CVEs, the common vulnerabilities, exposures, and getting better at determining the root cause through data into the CV entries. So much like we see in the auto industry and other industries, we can begin to analyze trends over time and know what the root causes we should be working on to drive it down at a systematic level, not just one-off patches. Third, we want to drive the adoption of secure by design practices across the board. And so we've recently announced a pledge to work with K through 12 and tech vendors on taking specific actions around secure by design. And we're really hoping and using this as a jump off point to teach and work with other sectors to drive specific commitments from tech manufacturers. All right. So lastly, and then your next steps is how can you get involved and how can you help? Well, of course, we encourage you to look at the white paper that we have and the associated documentation. We're working on a second draft of our secure by design principles, so keep an eye out for that. Lastly, next, take a look at the history of safety in other fields. Reach out to us if you have lessons you want to share about what you've seen in your workplace or other places. And we look for opportunities to drive the Secure by Design and Secure by Default program. Whether you're in a technology manufacturer, see how you can build into your roadmap, Secure by Design, or gather metrics and engage with stakeholders around this. If you work in academia, you can tie security into your computer science curriculums. If you work in the open source community, you can see how you can really build momentum to generate sustainable and healthy and secure open source communities. Please do engage with the Secure by Design team in the email below on the bottom here. And we want your help to make this happen. And with that, I thank you for your time. Please do reach out if you have any questions. We're available. And that's it. Back to you, Al.
Thank you, Bill. Great information. Let's open it up to anyone in the audience. Does anyone have any questions? You need to put it in the chat box or, excuse me, unmute yourself and feel free to ask the question at this point. No questions. Well, I will, oh, sorry, go ahead. Was there a question?
Yeah. I was looking at the Secure by Design pledge, and it does outline some like kind of milestones per se for kind of abiding by them. I know you said it's non-binding, but like, how would we go about like validating that? Like, yeah, that's the question.
That's a good question. Yeah, that has come up before. Other organizations that are curious about the validation part, right? So yeah, at this point, it is the honor system, right? It is a commitment to be transparent and to be open about either the work that you've done or the challenges you had. So at this point, there is no way to validate how people um, go about building in secure by design into their organizations. However, if the evidence will become transparent if they ever have security incidents, if they ever have experienced kind of problems, generally those come out and we're going to kind of know if they're not living up to their pledge. So that said, there is the honor system at this point, but we expect, I guess, that kind of truth will eventually come out.
Thank you.
And I think in many senses, CISA is leading the way in this particular area to try and figure out how do we make our software products more mature. And we as users of those products, we also, as he mentioned, have a role in working with vendors to better understand how we can convince them or help convince them that designing their products in a more secure manner will be better in the long run. So as you talk to your technology partners and if they're already in the program, then simply talking to them to make them aware that you're aware is a good start. So at least you can kind of have a conversation about what can be done and what can be improved in the future. And then if you have any kind of ability to affect the agreement you sign with a vendor, taking a look at some of the suggestions that Bill shared related to some of the features that would be good to have in different products could be something that you could talk to your vendor about potentially adding to any agreement that you sign with them. And by doing that, you'll in essence augment what CISA is working on right now and help to make this particular program a reality quicker than just having CISA push it by themselves. So I think, as he said, provide feedback, see if you can talk to your vendors about it, make them aware that you're aware, and in doing so, it'll hopefully result in safer products, more secure offerings for all of us.
Yeah, to add to that, I think we want to hear good or bad, right? If you're working with your vendors or any kind of conversation about products that have security or need security, we want to know good or bad. How is that going? What is that successful? Are your providers having challenges, or is there a challenge in just understanding what what a level of security is? And so yeah, I think we just want to know in these processes how is this going, and how can we tell your stories, understand where the challenges come from, and then kind of shift the guidance that we can provide across the country.
Excellent, excellent. Well, with that, we're pretty much at the end of our allotted time. I want to thank Bill for explaining the very important program, Secure by Design. And I hope you all got some good practical information out of the presentation today. As I mentioned, we will be we have been recording the session and we will post it onto our website. So we'll send you an email once that's posted, along with a request to fill out a survey to let us know how the webinar was for you and if you have any suggestions on future webinars for this series. Up next in August will be a very interesting topic. We're calling it convergence. And basically it's looking at a threat and not only viewing it from one domain, such as cyber or physical security or incident response, but really trying to get the responses to converge by breaking down different silos within organizations. So that'll take place on August 6th, Tuesday at 2 p.m. Be on the lookout for the registration on the site, or you may receive an email from us letting you know that it's open for registration. If you have any more questions or information after this, again, Bill is available to talk to you, as am I, and look forward to starting a conversation on cyber and how we can make Hawaii a safer community. So with that, I want to thank you for attending today and wish you a great rest of the day and great rest of the week. Mahalo.
Thanks, Al. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.